Zoom, Deputy Speaker Aurelio Don Gonzales Jr., Deputy Majority Leader Lawrence Defensor, Deputy Minority Leader Stephen James Tan, Deputy Majority Leader Janet Garin, Vice Chair Maria Rachel Arenas, Vice Chairperson Vice Chair Mary Mitzi Kahayon Uy, Vice Chair Luisa Loren Quaresma, Vice Chair Roy Loyola, Vice Chair Aline Vargas Alfonso, Vice Chair Divine Grace Yu, members of the Committee on Appropriations, Representative Maria Vanessa Aumentado, Representative Drixie May Cardema, Representative Ambrosio C. Cruz Jr., Representative Ricardo S. Cruz Jr., Representative Cero Dago, Representative Antonieta Yodela, Representative Jaime Fresnedi, Representative Dante Garcia, Representative Edwin Garjola, Representative Mark Go, Representative Charis Ann Hernandez, Representative Jefferson Konghun, Representative Daphne Lagon, Representative Sunny Lagon, Representative Carmelo John Lasatin II, Representative Jervil Luiso, Representative Doris Maniguez, Representative Bay Dimpol Mastura, Representative Arnan Panaligan, Representative Agustina Dominic Dice Tina Pancho, Representative Ramon Jolo Revilla III, Representative Dimsar Sali, Representative Caroline Tanchay, Representative Jocelyn Tulfo, Representative Patrick Michael Vargas, Representative Samuel Versosa Jr., Representative Christopherson Yap. Other members, Representative Richard Gomez, Representative Ruth Mariano Hernandez, Rep. Journey Jet Nisay, Representative Jose Gay Pajermos, Representative Florida Rida Robes, and Representative Edgardo Salbami. May we now acknowledge the officials of the Commission on Human Rights, Attorney Jacqueline Ann Diguia, the Executive Director, Attorney Hasmin Rihino, Attorney Francis Tom Temprosa, Attorney Gemma Paro Hinog, Director Renato Basas, Attorney Maria Asuncion Mariano Maravilla, Executive Director Carmelo Victor Crisanto of the Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission. That's all, Madam Chairperson.
Esteemed colleagues, Commissioner Jacqueline Ann Diguia, CHR family, ladies and gentlemen, isang magandang umaga po sa atin lahat. The Constitution mandates the CHR to investigate violations of our civil and political rights and provide legal measures to protect the human rights of all persons within the Philippines, as well as Filipinos abroad. They look after the plight of detainees, render medical legal services, issue human rights certifications, and conduct educational activities nationwide. CHR not only helps to seek justice for the poor and the underprivileged, they also help to maintain stability in our communities, which in turn makes this country a more conducive environment for doing business. Kaya sa totoo lang, kasama din kayo sa pagbangon ng ating ekonomiya. This morning, we shall discuss a proposed budget of the Commission on Human Rights and the Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission, amounting to a total of 878.2 million pesos. Congress fully supports the CHR in the performance of its important mandate. May we have a productive meeting today. Maraming salamat po. And at this point, it is my honor to introduce to you the sponsor of your budget. She will single-handedly defend your budget in the floor. And of course, she's Representative Jocelyn S. Lim Kayong of the 1st District of Negros Oriental. So kayo na po ang bahala sa kanya, bigyan niyo siya ng kanyang ang lahat ng information na kailangan niya para ma-defend niya ang inyong budget. At this point, I'd like to recognize Vice Chair Lim Kayong for her opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and sa lahat, a pleasant morning. So to our distinguished colleagues, our guests from the CHR, ladies and gentlemen, again, a pleasant morning. I want to start by thanking you, everyone, for your participation in today's briefing of the Commission on Human Rights budget for the fiscal year 2023. The CHR plays an important role in safeguarding human rights and fundamental freedoms provided by our Constitution. It is also mandated to monitor our government's compliance in international treaty organizations, obligations on human rights. In fact, the CHR of the Philippines is one of the human rights institutions internationally recognized and accredited by the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions because of our compliance with the Paris Principles. Today, through the presentation to be made by CHR Executive Director Attorney Jacqueline Ann De Guia and her team, you will see how they execute their broad mandate with quite limited funds. For fiscal year 2023, the Commission's proposed budget is only 846.38 million, or 12.27% lower from their previous budget. This represents a 118 million slash or cut from their budget for the current year. While the number of Filipino that CHR serves within their set budget is impressive, a larger sum of funds would enable them to expand and cover greater number of vulnerable and underserved, including those who are victims of abuses by state and non-state actors. The role as an independent agency, acting as a check and balance and a policy advisor to government is as relevant today as it has been in the previous years. It is for this reason that I strongly support and endorse the budget of the CHR and its attached agency, the Human Rights Violations Victim Memorial Commission, headed by the Executive Director, Carmelo Victor Crisanto. And it is my hope that the rest of my colleagues extend their support as well towards an institution that brings remedy and hope to countless victims across the country. Salamat po.
Salamat, Vice Chair Lim Kayong. Napakaswerte niyo po na ang inyong sponsor ay former Appropriations Chair lang naman. You will be in very good hands. At this point, Executive Director Jacqueline Ann De Guia, you may now proceed with your presentation.
In behalf of the Commission on Human Rights, we would like to warmly extend our appreciation to the Senior Vice Chairperson, Honorable Kimbo, for her opening statement, together with the voice of support of Honorable Jocelyn Lim Kayong, our sponsor. And we are happy to have her as our champion, and we value her support throughout this entire process. Of course, we would also like to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Congressmen who are here today, and we commit to make sure that we are able to responsibly answer to your queries, welcome your constructive feedback, and be able to answer clarifications that you may have. And we do hope that this will result to a better protection and promotion of human rights. Today, I am joined by the senior officials of the Commission on Human Rights, and I am currently representing the CHR as the Executive Director and currently the caretaker of the CHR. Let me proceed with the presentation of our agency profile very briefly, and then we can delve into the details of our budget proposal. The CHR is a state institution. It is a primary national human rights institution of the country. It is created by virtue of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, specifically under Article 13, Section 17. It is stated that there is hereby created an independent office called the Commission on Human Rights. The CHR as a state agency is neither under the executive, the legislative, or the judiciary. It counts itself among the constitutional commissions or offices. The constitutional commissions are, of course, the Civil Service Commission, the COMELEC, the COA, and the Constitutional Office that it counts itself alongside with is the Office of the Ombudsman. And as mentioned a while ago by our kind sponsor, the CHR, like all the other constitutional commissions and offices, serves as a check and balance mechanism to look into the appropriate use or the proper use of authority or power. The CHR looks into the protection and promotion of human rights. It is found in Article 2, State Policies of the 1987 Constitution, that the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. That is the provision under the 1987 Constitution that basically emphasizes that human rights is primarily a state obligation. And the reason why this is so is because we look into the government as the prime mover in terms of the protection and promotion of human rights, and the government is able to do this important function and responsibility through the creation of different executive agencies that will look into different thematic human rights areas. For example, for the right to life, we have the PNP. For the right to health, we have the Department of Health. For the right to social security, we do have the GSIS and the SSS. For the right to work, we have the DOLE. And for the right to education, we have the Department of Education, Culture, DepEd. And the CHR stands as a partner of government. It serves as the educator, monitor, and advocate of the government. And only in instances where there are alleged human rights violations, then it is mandated to investigate such. This slide shows us the mandates of the CHR as encapsulated in Section 18, Article 13 of the 1987 Constitution. The CHR is primarily an investigative body. It should investigate on its own or on complaint of any party all forms of human rights violations involving civil and political rights. It can also adapt its operational procedures. It can also render legal assistance, especially to the vulnerable, the marginalized, and the underprivileged. It will also grant financial assistance as well as grant immunity from prosecution in cases of human rights violations. And all of these functions are under our protection services, headed by Attorney Jasmine Regino. Our promotion work is represented by the important responsibility of educating the public and deepening their understanding about human rights. We do have information officers and training specialists all over the country, headed by Director Tom Temprosa. And this is in fulfillment of our mandate to establish a continuing program of research, education, and information. One of the important roles of the CHR, of course, is to monitor government's compliance with regards to its international treaty obligations, as well as to recommend to Congress effective measures in support of its role for human rights-based legislation. And this is done by our policy services, particularly headed by Attorney Gemma Parahinog, as well as Director Renante Basas. Towards this end, we submit position papers to Congress that support human rights-based legislation and issue advisories to guide government in the work that they do. And then, of course, we do have an important mandate to visit detention facilities. And because of the recent enactment of the mental health law, we as well visit mental health institutions, and this is done by our prevention services, headed by Director Brenda Canapi. The CHR is the primary national human rights institution of the country. It has counterparts globally in Southeast Asia, in Europe, in Africa, as well as in the Americas. We are guided by a global framework called the Paris Principles, and NHRIs would have to have these following characteristics. First, human rights institutions all over the world should demonstrate fiscal autonomy to be able to do the important work that it has. It likewise has to demonstrate independence. It likewise has to make sure that it has a broad mandate to look into all kinds of human rights violations. It should also demonstrate operational efficiency. And then, of course, the appointment of our commissioners and chairperson would also have to adhere to the concept of pluralism. They must mirror diverse backgrounds, and they must represent different sectors of our society. And of course, we must make sure that the CHR as the NHRI would have sufficient resources to enable it to carry out its mandate. It is particularly important for the CHRs and NHRI to demonstrate all of all of these characteristics as we face our accreditation on the following year. The Philippine government as well as the public should take pride in the fact that for the past 35 years, we have always been accredited as a status A institution. And that means and demonstrates the high commitment of the government in terms of human rights protection and promotion. And we do hope to sustain that accreditation as well. And we look forward to the support of Congress, particularly in making sure that we are able to demonstrate fiscal autonomy, independence, as well as operational efficiency. The CHR has only 16 regional offices. We don't have offices at the municipal and city level. We also have 2 sub-offices in Region 4B, but despite the limited number of offices, we do strive to make sure that our delivery of services remain unhampered and accessible, especially in the far-flung areas. We're now moving to the current agency staff and profile of the CHR. We do have 842 plantilla positions in the CHR. However, as of December 31, 2021, 654 only out of the 842 positions have been filled up. And currently, we do have a vacancy of 188 staff. We do have gender balance in the commission. We do have a good distribution of male and female staff. We do have 302 females in the CHR in contrast to 352 in the regions. We also have a good representation of IPs in the central office as well as in the regional offices, 29 all in all, including persons with disabilities, 3 in the central office as well as 3 in the regional offices. This is now the highlight of our presentation, our proposed budget summary for fiscal year 2023. We do have a grand total of proposed budget in the amount of 1.6 billion, 1,646,103 million, broken down as follows. For Tier 1, particularly referring to recurring budgets, for PS, we did propose 489,572,000. For MOE, which is very crucial in maintaining our operations, especially in the regional offices, we did propose 305,944,000. For financial expense, a total of 10 million. For capital outlay, we don't have any under Tier 1, which brings us to a total PAPs of 795,626,000 pesos. If we were to include, of course, retirement life and insurance, that would amount to 41,270,000 pesos, or a grand total of 836,896,000 pesos. Under Tier 2, we propose new and expanding projects. For PS, we did foresee that we need 526,150,000. For MOE, we're looking for an additional 96,643,000 pesos. For capital outlay, we are requesting 169,329,000, which brings us to a total PAPs of 792,122,000. If we were, of course, to include our LEAP, that would bring us to a total of 809,207,000, which if added together would now amount to 1.6 billion pesos in total. If we were to look at our budget comparatively this year, as well as a proposed budget for calendar year 2023, we would see a disparity in PS amounting to a deficiency of 28,404,000, or roughly 5.4% decrease. In terms of MOE, we do see a decrease in the amount of 62,200,000 276,000, or a decrease of 16.91%. And I would, of course, like to emphasize that this is very much crucial in maintaining the operations of the CHR. And we look kindly upon Congress to make sure that we are able to have this budget restored. The MOE would now pertain to communication expenses, which is very much necessary in the time of pandemic. Through the past 2 years, we have increased our visibility and accessibility by making sure that we have 24/7 hotlines. We have also bolstered our social media accounts. We have also launched an electronic lawyering services to make the legal services of our lawyers accessible even in far-flung areas, and that would be most crucial. Part of this MOE would also pertain to fuel and lubricant. We were blessed and fortunate because the previous administration and previous Congress gave us vehicles. However, we do need fuel and lubricant to sustain the operations of our regional offices to reach the far-flung areas. And we do hope that Congress might as well provide us again new vehicles, because these vehicles have already aged. And as I mentioned a while ago, the geographical makeup of the country, not to mention, of course, 16 regional offices only, would mean the regional officers having to travel far-flung areas. And in this regard, transportation is very much crucial. We also see deduction of 27,193,000 pesos in capital outlay. And of course, that would be most crucial in terms of the vehicles, as I mentioned. And then, of course, that would also pertain to equipment, which is much needed by our staff. Which brings us now to a total of 117,873,000 deduction, or 12.80. If we were to include our LEAP, that would also amount to 453,000 pesos. So all in all, if we were to compare the budget of the CHR this current year to next year, there will be a decline of 118,326,000, or a total of 12% in terms of percentage. These are the details of our Tier 2 summary in terms of PS. In terms of our MOE, as I have mentioned a while ago, 100 million is allocated for general administration and support services. 54 million is support to operations. As I mentioned a while ago, fuel, lubricant, communication expenses is very much crucial here. We also are proposing 80 million for protection program that would contribute greatly to the investigation of cases, to the rendering of legal assistance, to the grant of financial assistance as well. And for our promotion program, we do hope to have 27 million to increase the visibility of CHR, to improve the production of IEC materials, to establish our Human Rights Institute, and to make sure that our trainings and seminars, especially in far-flung areas, continue. And for our policy advisory program, we did propose 42 million, or a total of 303,944,000 pesos. If we would also like to acquaint the Congress about our budget utilization. We have obligated 99.64% and disbursed 97.64% of the total released allotment for fiscal year 2021, including continuing appropriations. In terms of our protection services, we do have an obligation rate of 100% and disburse 98.80% of the total allotted budget for Human Rights Protection Program, meaning to say that we have actually a high utilization rate when it comes to this program. which includes, of course, our prevention program. For our promotion program, we have obligated 100% and disbursed 94.11% of the allotted budget for this particular service. In terms of our policy work, we have obligated 100% and disbursed 97.9% of the allotted budget for Human Rights Policy Advisory Program. This portion would now acquaint all our honorable congressmen of our accomplishments during the past year and as we speak right now. In terms of the investigation of human rights violations and case management, for calendar year 2021, we have received a total of 6,078 complaints. And some of this, of course, would also encompass those that we have investigated on our own initiative or motu proprio investigation. As of July 30, we have already acted upon 3,187 requests, complaints, and cases. In terms of our internally displaced persons, of course, we do acknowledge that right now climate change is a very relevant issue, and the onslaught of typhoons have also displaced many of our communities. We continue to monitor them, including those displaced as by reason of conflict. In calendar year 2021, we have rendered assistance to we have monitored rather 396,893 individuals. And as we speak right now, as of July 30,
ED Jacqueline,
yes,
in the interest of time, since we all have hard copies of your presentation and it's in the middle part of the folder, perhaps you can just, this is the last part of your presentation,
Yes,
I believe,
ma'am.
accomplishment. Can you just wind up so that we
Wind
can
up.
proceed
Okay,
to
ma'am.
interpretation? Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much, Honorable Kimbo. So these slides will just show you that we have done important and relevant work even during the time of pandemic. And then we envision that we are able to do more in the coming year. We do propose to make sure that we are able to have more work in financial assistance, in mental health law. One of our priorities right now is also to act on IHL cases. The AFP has forwarded 1,700 cases in recent months, and we do now have a dedicated unit that will look into IHL violations. So we do hope that we will be able to do important work on that as well. We have produced an NICC report as a result of the inquiry conducted during the previous years. And we do hope that we will be able to popularize such report and make sure that the recommendations are brought to the attention of concerned government agencies so that those recommendations can be carried out. We also do hope that we will be able to continue the operationalization of the interim national preventive mechanism. We also hope that Congress will be able to pass a legislation that will create an agency that will visit detention facilities with a non-adversarial approach that is a deliverable under the UNJP. And then, of course, we also want to bolster our promotion work. We want to make sure that we are able to strengthen our human rights institute. And that is the reason why we look kindly upon Congress to make sure that all our services in terms of protection, prevention, promotion, and policy work is strengthened and continued during fiscal year 2023. Thank you, Honorable Kimbo.
Salamat, ED Jacqueline. So we now begin interpellation. A few house rules. Each member only has 5 minutes for his or her questions. The 5 minutes do not include the time of the resource persons. So kung gusto natin matapos, you're highly encouraged to answer directly, completely, yet concisely. And we also have a long-standing tradition in Congress where we accord preferential treatment to the minority, and they will be followed by the majority in an alternating manner. Before I yield the chair to Vice Chair Lim Kay-chong, I just have a few questions. Well, una sa lahat, congratulations. Napakataas ng inyong utilization rate. It's probably the highest numbers I've seen so far. So congratulations on that. Just a quick question. Can you just explain the org structure, like how many commissioners you have? And tama po ba na sa ngayon, vacant ba lahat ng positions na yun?
Yes, thank you for your kind question, Honorable Kimbo. The CHR is headed by a chairperson and 4 commissioners, majority of whom should be members of the Philippine Bar. They are appointed by the Office of the President, and currently we don't have the Commission and Bank. It should have been on its 6th term already. All our chairperson and commissioners retired last May 7. They enjoy a full term of 7 years. And as I mentioned a while ago, the Paris Principles, which is the regulatory framework for all human rights institutions globally, would emphasize that there must be a selection and appointment process. As we are facing our accreditation this year, the Subcommittee on Accreditation will look into the appointment of the 6th Commission, and they have stressed the importance of a process. We do hope that there will be an executive issuance, a decree or a legislation that will highlight that there is a process, that it is open and transparent, ideally consultative, and with broad participation from the public as well as from all stakeholders. They are also envisioned to demonstrate a high commitment to human rights, at least 10 years experience in the field of human rights. And as I mentioned a while ago, they must also demonstrate pluralism. Pluralism emphasizes that they should mirror diverse backgrounds, that they should come from different sectors of the society, from the academe, from Congress, from the education sector, from all walks of life, so that the different thematic issues will be reflected as well. And we do look forward to the appointment of our chairperson and commissioners, and we do hope that it will be done before the end of the year.
Right? Kasama niyo po ako sa panalangin na magkaroon na kayo ng commissioners sa lalong mabilis na panahon. At this point, I yield the chair to Vice Chair Lim Kayong.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And let's call in our first interpellator from the minority, Representative Raul Manuel.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning din sa mga kapwa mambabatas. Good morning sa CHR. In line dun sa naging question din ni Congresswoman Kimbo, I'd like to inquire kung ano kayo yung mga factors na nagpapatagal pa na dun sa pag-fill in ng positions sa Commission on Human Rights.
Thank you for your question, Representative Manuel. Right now, we are also keenly waiting for the Office of the President to appoint. Of course, for purposes of openness and transparency, we have communicated with Malacanang during recent weeks, and we have informed the Office of the President that the Subcommittee on Accreditation during the process that was initiated in 2017 did point out that for the 6th Commission, they are expecting a process, an open and transparent process that will be followed in the appointment of our commissioners and chairperson. And we did also mention that it would be to the advantage of the government if there would be an issuance in the form of an executive decree or a legislation that will now highlight that there is a process, that it is open, transparent, consultative, and participative, and that there must be qualifications in terms of those who will be appointed, strong background in human rights, independent, as well as demonstrating pluralism. Of course, we respect the prerogative of the Office of the President. We do understand that they are assessing very well the qualifications, and they are also looking into the vacancies of other agencies within the bureaucracy. We look forward, of course, to the immediate appointment, but we also highlight the importance of a process prior to the appointment. because that will impact on the accreditation or the status of the accreditation of the CHR. We hope that we will not be downgraded to status B. That will reflect negatively, of course, on the commitment of the Philippine government towards human rights protection and promotion. And that is why we have been working and engaging with the executive in this regard.
Okay. Now, Madam Chair, tungkol naman sa budget ng Commission on Human Rights, yung budget na nasa National Expenditure Program ngayon, it is 118 million pesos less compared dun sa budget for 2022. Tama ba, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, that is right, Representative Manuel.
Yes. And compared naman dun sa kabuang proposal ng Commission on Human Rights, ang nasa National Expenditure Program ay around 800 million na mas mababa. Tama ba?
That is accurate, Honorable Manuel.
Okay. Now, I'd like to ask Madam Chair kung ano yung mga primaryang programa o activities ng Commission on Human Rights na pinakamatatamaan in case na hindi ma-restore o hindi mapataas yung budget para sa Commission.
Representative Manuel, as I mentioned a while ago, it's very crucial that we are able to maintain at current levels, if not increase our MOE. As I mentioned a while ago, we only have 16 regional offices. They rely heavily on transportation to be able to reach provinces which may be 3 to 5 hours away from every regional office. And it is therefore crucial that we have fuel and lubricant to sustain our operations in the regions, to visit all detention facilities. We have almost 1,500 detention facilities all over the country, which the CHR must visit to improve the condition of jails, I must say. And we do this multitaskingly. And it is most crucial that we are able to get fuel and lubricant. In the pandemic, we have also made sure that our services are accessible through electronic mail, through our hotlines, and through our social media accounts. And communication expenses for sustaining these initiatives is very much crucial. So we do hope that that will be sustained as well. We are also asking for capital outlay for the provision of new transportation for our regional offices. We currently, they only have 2 vehicles for every regional office. With 8 provinces under each region, it is most crucial that we are able to upgrade those vehicles. As I mentioned a while ago, we thank the former Congress for giving us capital outlay for the purchase of vehicles, but this has aged as well. They have reached their 5-year or 6-year mark and has suffered tremendously in terms of depreciation. We're also looking forward to more support in terms of MOE for the publication expenses. As I mentioned a while ago, our promotion work relies heavily on the publication of IEC materials, so there is a corresponding deduction in MOE as well. And then, of course, we want to make sure that our new and expanding programs are sustained by Congress. We have proposed 21 million for financial assistance. And this financial assistance caters to many victims of human rights violations, victims of rape cases, sexual abuse, exploitation, military and police officers who have been killed in action as well, victims of torture and forced disappearance and killings. So these amounts in terms of financial assistance will aid them in accessing legal remedies. It encourages them in filing cases, and it also sends a message that government acknowledges that a wrong has been done against them, and this is a concrete way of providing recompense for them. Of course, we are also proposing additional budget for the establishment of our Human Rights Institute, for the purchase of our computers and laptops. We want to make sure that our staff are also given adequate support in terms of equipment to enable them to do their work. We also want to make sure that there is more funding for the National Preventive Mechanism. As I mentioned a while ago, the Philippine government is a signatory to the Second Optional Protocol on the Convention Against Torture. And under the UNJP program right now, one of the deliverables is the passage of a law creating a mechanism. And this mechanism is supposed to visit detention facilities. But the beauty of this mechanism, I have to stress, is that it is non-adversarial in its approach. It aims to prevent torture by constantly dialoguing with jail custodian authorities. And we have been remiss in our obligation to pass this law since 2012. And the CHR has helped the government in terms of fulfilling its obligation by establishing an interim national preventive mechanism. However, it will entail 5 million to sustain a multi-stakeholder approach in terms of visiting them, of course. And these are just but some of the programs. Of course, improving our databases is also one that we look forward next year.
Yes. Madam Chair, nabanggit ng ating opisyal mula sa Commission on Human Rights yung Human Rights Institute. I'd like to ask for brief details about this kasi yung Commission on Human Rights ay isang national human rights institution. So ano pa yung specific na mga nais nating gawin through the Human Rights Institute?
Your Honor, I will kindly refer you to Director Tom Temprosa.
Before you reply, kindly address your answer to the chair.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. Maraming salamat po for that wonderful question. The Human Rights Institute really is the one taking charge and promoting human rights in terms of our constitutional mandate on establishing a continuing program on human rights education and information. It's in Article 13 of the 1987 Constitution. There are many programs of the Human Rights Institute that are now in the pipeline. I would just like to inform Madam Chair that the Human Rights Institute was launched recently under the previous commission. It is established to be the training arm of the CHR to deliver regular courses on human rights to the security sector, the public, and most especially government officials. We now have several courses, general courses on human rights, specialized courses on human rights, and executive and professional courses on human rights. We have also made partnerships with the Civil Service Institute of the CSC. We have also made partnerships with the Philippine Judicial Academy of the Supreme Court. And also we're talking with the Civil Executive Service Board, among many other institutions. What we want, and I would just like to inform you, Madam Chair, that the courses of the Human Rights Institute are accredited and recognized by the Civil Service Institute for promotion for all government officials and partners. Having said that, we have and we really want to strengthen all our programs and launch massive human rights information campaigns to the public. We have also, and we want to venture and have facilities, Your Honors, for the conduct of regular human rights courses. This is something that we want to aspire for because when you compare the CHR with other constitutional bodies, they all have institutions that regularly teach on their mandates. And in the CHR, we have really established this to be such. You look at the Civil Service Commission, there is the Civil Service Institute. The Supreme Court, there is the Philippine Judicial Academy. And we want the CHR to be at par with our constitutional fellow constitutional commissions and offices. So having said that, one of the things that we're really looking at is strengthening our LMS, the legal management system. We already launched, because of the pandemic, an online human rights academy under the Human Rights Institute program. You might be interested to know, Your Honors, that we have trained thousands of security sector personnel in order for them to know, for example, how to arrest properly, what are the rights of those who are detained, what are the rights of persons suffering from mental health, etc. And we have, Your Honors, noted a marked increase in the awareness of human rights among AFP personnel and even in the PNP. We have surveys, internal surveys to support that. So what we really want is to continue this, Your Honors, and to have more massive programs, especially targeting those not only in the security sector, but even those in the justice sector. For example, security personnel, judges and prosecutors, so that they will know, for example, the rights of people who are implicated in the Anti-Terror Act operations. So these are some of the flagship programs that we want to have, Your Honors.
Okay. Madam Chair, ano yung trend ng budget para sa Human Rights Institute? May budget ba ito nitong mga nakaraang taon? Tas magkano naman yung proposed budget for 2023?
Unfortunately, Madam Chair, the Human Rights Institute was not given a budget in the previous year. It was vetoed. Unfortunately, that was the situation. However, we still press on under our general education mandate in order to launch and provide funding for the institute, because that is part of our constitutional mandate. In this coming year, we want to propose, if I'm not mistaken, 12 million for the institute, 12.5 million for the institute. And I would just like to inform the body, Madam Chair, that the Institute has been graduating many civil servants and personnel so that they will really know the rights of others and they will be able to perform their duties well. I forgot to mention, Your Honors, that we are also in talks with the Professional Regulation Commission so that all of the courses will be credited for the renewal of the professional IDs of personnel. For example, criminologists and police officers, so that they will know, they will have units and they will be able to know what the rights of people are. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, how about yung Human Rights Promotion Program? Ano yung mga activities connected dyan? Ano yung mga tinuturo? Sino yung mga target na maturuan? Kasi nakita din natin na pending na magkakaroon nito ng 5.86 million na cut eh. So, concerned tayo dun sa magiging impact nito. So, ano yung mga tinuturo? Sino yung target na demographics?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This year, Madam Chair, just to show to you the figures, the General Promotions Program of CHR was able to reach close to 60,000 participants already. That is as of July 30, 2022. Last year, we were able to reach more than 100,000 despite the limitations of the pandemic. In the pipeline, Your Honors, we want to, of course, teach, and that's really the thrust of my office, our office here, is to teach all the required human rights topics, because in the law, there are several required human rights topics that should be taught to them, to the security sector, to the government officials, and the public. For example, Your Honors, under the law, it is required to teach the Anti-Torture Act. It is also required to teach the Mental Health Act. It is required to teach the promotion of the rights of people who, like women, general sectors, and children, especially with the passage of the OSAIC law. Your Honors, I would also like to inform you that we are, and we want to, and we have partnered with the AFP and the PNP so that people will know the rights of those who are arrested in relation to the Anti-Torture Act. Because Anti-Terrorism Act. Because the CHR has a mandate under the Anti-Terrorism Act to investigate and prioritize the prosecution of human rights violations.
Okay. Madam Chair, tungkol naman sa Freedom Memorial Museum, gusto kong malaman kung ano yung current problems na na-encounter para matuloy na yung construction at meron bang mga legal impediments concerning this project. I-request na briefly masagot ito, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, there is a separate and attached agency to the CHR. This is the Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission. It is currently headed by Executive Director Chuck Crisanto, who is now present to be able to answer your questions, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Director Chuck.
Madam Chair, can we show some slides so that there will be a visual presentation of what we're doing?
Yes, a brief presentation.
It's very brief. This is the Freedom Memorial Museum. The lot has already been covered by a memorandum of agreement with the UP for 50 years on a use of rock agreement. Next slide, please. Our commission was formed by Republic Act 10368. It created two agencies. Now the defunct Human Rights Victims Claims Board, which evaluated the number of claimants and said that there are 11,103 who were recognized as their rights have been violated during the Marcos martial law period from 1972 to 1986 and provided 10 billion in reparations. The role of victims will be memorialized under the HRVVMC. Next slide. This is the museum timeline since we started. The organization, while the law was passed in 2013, I only came in the latter part of 2018. And by January of 2019, there were only 3 permanent personnel. So we're fastly bringing up the recruitment of our people. We only have 30 plantilla positions. In building the museum, there was a big design competition participated by architects, Filipino architects from around the world, from Beijing, Middle East, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, Hong Kong, and this is the one that was chosen. Next, I discussed the MOA with UP. Part of the agreement with UP was that all structures on the museum lot be relocated, and the HRVVMC would provide a 80 million subsidy to the construction of these buildings called the UP Maintenance Office Yard and Workshop. I'd like to inform the chair that 100% completion already of the structures. And this Friday, the DPWH and UP team will confirm and can begin actually moving to their new relocation site. With this new relocation site, we can begin demolishing all of the UP buildings so that the museum lot will now be free for rapid construction. We also do libraries and archive. We're archiving several collections, and the primary collection is 11,103, which has already been digitized and archived with various institutions. We have already collected 300 museum artifacts and are still in the process of accessing these artifacts. If you look at the presentation, we have already got the Absecom van where Nino Aquino was placed unceremoniously after his assassination. We've trained our people in capacity building so that by the time the museum is up, our people are well trained in handling a human rights museum. We've done consultations with the survivors, and we've set up SDGs or survivor discussion groups, 9 of them across the country. More than 300 have participated on a regular basis. This is our comparative budget summary. We're only requesting for, as placed by DBM, 31 million. I think we're the smallest government agency so far with this kind of budget. We have a trust fund provided by law. And this is the trust fund I'd like the Honorable Chair to look into. There used to be a special provision provided in every JA, and for the NEP for 2023, there is no special provision regarding our trust fund. We do have, as of the moment, 287 million in our MDS fund, which we can still release before the end of the year if we can actually bid out the construction for the museum starting October. But if there is no special provision, then it may turn out to be a white elephant since no funds will be allotted for 2023. This is the special provision cost. It said upon request, but in the last year, the upon request did not happen automatically, and it was actually only released on the second semester of 2021. Hence the delays. Thank you very much. I hope I answered the questions, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Na Madam Chair, na-present din dun sa slides at nasa ating materials din, no, na set na magkakaroon ng 5.6 million na cut yung Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission. And we're aware na meron ding human rights education program na kinakonduct yung ganong commission. Ano yung mga tinuturo dun sa human rights education program at bakit mahalaga na may pagpatuloy yung ganong programa?
Madam Chair, ang sagot po doon, ayon sa batas, ang mga aral na natutunan natin sa panahon ng batas militar noong 7286 ay dapat ipamulat sa mga ating kabataan sa DepEd at sa CHED. Importante po ito dahil ang isang bayan na nakakalimot sa nakaraan ay hindi makakatahak ng magandang kinabukasan.
Okay. Final question, Madam Chair. Given na meron din minsan mga misconceptions dun sa responsibilidad ng Commission on Human Rights. At kanina naman ay naipaliwanag na kung ano yung kanyang mandato, ano yung kanyang mga responsibilidad. So para lang once and for all, ma-clear natin talaga ano ba yung mga ginagawa ng CHR na hindi nagagawa o hindi natin pwedeng iasa dun sa ibang mga ahensya ng ating pamahalaan.
Thank you, Madam
Go ahead.
Chair, for the question. Of course, as I mentioned a while ago, under Section 18 of the 1987 Constitution, one of our primary mandates would be the investigation of all cases of human rights violations involving civil and political rights. At yan po ay nakapaloob sa aming protection service. At yung promotion program namin, katulad na rin ng prevention program at policy program, ay kaakibat ng mga mandato ng CHR. Ngunit sa mga nakalipas na taon, maraming mga misconceptions about the mandate of the CHR, particular na dun sa aming investigation mandate. At tulad po na nabanggit ko kanina, ang human rights po is the primary responsibility of government. At yan po ay nakapaloob sa Article 2 ng state policies. At nakalagay po dyan sa Section 11 that the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. Yung word na guarantee po doon ay nagpapahayag na talagang pangunahing responsibilidad ng pamahalaan iyon. At nakikita naman po natin na ginagawa ng pamahalaan iyong responsibilidad na iyon sa iba't ibang larangan ng karapatang pantao. At ginagawa po ito sa pag-create ng iba't ibang ahensya para tumukoy sa iba't ibang klase ng karapatang pantao. Para po sa larangan ng edukasyon, nandiyan po ang DepEd para sa usapin ng health or kalusugan para siguraduhin na accessible, available, in sufficient quantity, culturally acceptable. Nandiyan po ang Department of Health para po siguraduhin na meron tayong pension. Nandiyan po ang Social Security Services at GS CSIS. At for example naman po sa usapin ng karapatan sa buhay at seguridad, andyan po ang Philippine National Police. So kinikilala po ng CHR na meron pong mga primary government agencies na tumitingin sa iba't ibang karapatang pantao. Ang CHR naman po in this regard monitors the programs, policies, and activities implemented by these different government agencies. And our role in this regard is to advise government on the human rights-based approach in the implementation of these programs. For example, during the pandemic, ang dami po namin nilabas na mga advisory at nagpapasalamat po kami na tinugunan po ito ng pamahalaan. Paano po siguraduhin na may bakuna para sa lahat, vaccination for all? Paano po sisiguraduhin na available in sufficient qualities? Paano po magkakaroon ng humanitarian approach? In cases po na may mga lumapit sa amin na mga kliyente at ito po ay nasa mandato ng ibang executive agencies, we refer it properly to the other government agencies, and we do help in whatever form and whatever assistance we can do kapag pasok po yan sa mandato ng ibang ahensya. Meron naman pong mga ibang usapin na talaga pong pumapasok sa mandato ng CHR. Yan po ay yung mga sinasabi natin alleged human rights violations. At bahagi po sa mga tinatanggap naming kaso o kaya naman po inaaksyonan namin sa aming sariling inisyatibo ay yung violations committed by state as well as non-state actors. So nabanggit ko po kanina na pangunahing obligasyon po ng pamahalaan ang karapatang pantao. Burden heavy po kapag ginamit sa mali yung otoridad o yung kapangyarihan na meron naman po siya. Kaya po mandato namin na tignan po yung tamang paggamit ng kapangyarihan at ito po ay magre-resulta sa pagprotekta ng karapatang pantao. We also acknowledge non-state actors violations committed by them vis-a-vis the international humanitarian law. We have received 1,700 cases over recent months. We now have a dedicated unit looking into that, centers as well as an analysis unit looking into it. We also look into cases of vulnerable sectors, yung mga women, child rights cases po natin, mga persons with disabilities, senior citizens. Hindi po natin sinasabi na yung sektor lamang ng mga marginalized ang tinutugunan ng CHR. Kaya lang, alinsunod na rin po sa konsepto ng social justice. Tungkulin po natin sa pamahalaan na siguraduhin na may special na protection na ibinibigay sa kanila. At ang Kongreso po sa mga nakalipas sa taon ay marami pong mga pinukalang mga batas tulad ng VAUSI o SAEC, Safe Spaces Act, Magna Carta of PWD, tungkulin po ng CHR na ma-implement po yan kasama po ng executive agencies. And of course, ngayon po, bago na rin po sa usapin ng larangan ng karapatang pantao, yung business and human rights. Nakita po natin sa mga nakaraang mga buwan at taon na malaki po ang epekto ng climate change. Nakita po natin sa mga nakaraang taon na yung mga resources na meron ang ating mga pribadong kumpanya ay mataas, kung hindi mas mataas pa sa mga resources na meron ng mga estado. At malaki po ang impluwensya nila sa usapin ng karapatang pantao at sinasabi po na kinakailangan rin may responsibilidad ang mga businesses sa usapin ng karapatang pantao. Kaya yan rin po ay tinitignan ng CHR ngayon. How do we encourage businesses to respect, protect, and provide remedies in cases of human rights violations brought about by the impacts of their businesses? Naglabas po kami ng isang NICC report at part of our thrust in the coming months and in the coming year is to popularize the report. We want to make sure that government is able to act swiftly on climate change because it impacts the right to life, the right to health, food security as we speak now. And na-monitor po namin yung usapin ng mga nakaraang araw at nagpapasalamat po kami dahil ang Kongreso po ay nagbigay ng commitment na tataasan po ang budget ng Climate Commission. Makakatulong po ito ng malaki sa usapin po ng karapatang pantao.
Okay. So with that comprehensive explanation, Madam Chair, nakita natin na dapat nga itaas pa natin yung level ng suporta natin sa Commission on Human Rights. We must not backtrack dun sa yung budgetary allotment na meron tayo ngayon para sa commission na ito. Bilang tinuturing din na konsyensya ng ating gobyerno, isa yun sa mga distinct na ginagawa ng Commission on Human Rights. Kaya meron siyang irreplaceable na papel sa ating gobyerno at sa ating lipunan. And to add na lang din, Madam Chair, yung pag-aaral din ng ating kasaysayan, lalo for young people. We can progress as a nation kung iba-iba yung versions ng kasaysayan na ating paniniwalaan, hindi tayo gagalaw bilang iisang bansa at masisira yung kinabukasan natin kung yung kabataan ay walang matibay na reference dun sa mga nangyari sa ating nakaraan. So for the Human Rights Violations Victims Memorial Commission at sa Commission on Human Rights, asahan ninyo na meron kayong mga kakampi dito sa loob ng Kongreso. Yun lamang, Madam Chair. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Congressman Raul, and I'm so happy and delighted that we have already at least the first interpolated from the minority supporting the augmentation of the budget of CHR. And you did a very good presentation, Attorney De Guia. Nakaka-impress talaga. Our next interpolator is no less than our independent minority, Representative Manong Edsa Lagman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is really an unfortunate coincidence that those who are ministering to the victims of the pandemic and other diseases do not have a permanent secretary in the Department of Health. And those who are ministering to the victims of human rights violations do not have stewards in the Human Rights in the Commission, like the chairman and the other commissioners. If the present administration is looking for a person or persons who have credentials in human rights advocacy, but who are willing to compromise their principles, then it will be a difficult search. It is just like looking for a needle in a haystack. Madam Chair, through the years, I have been supportive of the budget and activities of the Commission on Human Rights. In fact, I have principally authored the triumvirate of human rights legislation, among which is Republic Act 103-18. Tama ba yun? Which is the Human Rights Violation Reparation and Recognition Act of 2013. Included in this law is Section 26, which mandated the creation and construction of a memorial museum to honor the heroism and sacrifices of human rights victims during martial law. And it also provided for the teaching in the curriculum of the atrocities of the martial law regime, as well as the heroism of the victims. I have no questions, Madam Chair, for a reduced budget of the Commission on Human Rights. But I would like to make an appeal. One, restore the budget of the Commission of Human Rights to its original proposal. Number two, provide a specific amount for the construction of the Freedom Memorial Museum and other facilities, and make, again, a special provision on the utilization of the trust fund. And number three, hoping that the administration would appoint veritable human rights advocates in the Commission on Human Rights. May I know, as an end to my statement, whether the Department of Education has already formulated and implemented the curriculum for the teaching of the atrocities of human rights violations as well as the heroism of the victims?
Madam Chair, in response, the last administration of the DepEd did not include it in their curriculum.
Okay. The DepEd at that time was the graveyard of this provision, the same manner that it was the graveyard for the inclusion in the curriculum of reproductive health education. Thank you, Madam Chair, for this opportunity, and more power to the Commission on Human Rights and the Memorial Commission.
Thank you very much. And I really, we have to also give credit to Congressman Edsel Lagman as the lone representative in the 19th Congress that was one of the framers of this human rights law, human rights violation law. So thank you very much, Congressman Lagman, for your support. The next to interpolate is from the majority, Representative Rodante Marcoleta. Please be gentle, sir.
Maraming salamat po, Madam Chair. Gandang umaga po to the lone defender of the CHR. Attorney De Guia, in the 17th Congress, this representation moved for a 1,000 budget of the CHR. Why do you think I did that?
Your Honor, Madam Chair, we do recognize that at that time, Honorable Marcoleta raised an important issue, that of making sure that the CHR is able to clarify its mandate, because there was too many misconceptions with regards our mandate. At that time, the public was only cognizant that we only investigate alleged human rights violations committed by state actors. And the Honorable Marcoleta called our attention and made sure that we were able to clarify to the public that we also cater to non-state actors as well. And we also have to make sure that we are able to expound well on the other services that we provide to other sectors of the society, lest it be misconstrued na we only cater to or we only point out to the wrongdoings of government. As a result, Madam Chair, we'd like to inform you also that this has been a reason for us to improve our communications to the public. We have strived over the years to clarify our mandate, to produce infographic that will expound on the misconceptions. We have also made sure that we develop campaigns that will also support government. Say for example, lagi po kasi sinasabi, lagi pong critical si CHR of government, and we wanted to straighten that misconception, and we wanted to give positive reinforcement sa mga pagkakataon na may ginagawang tama at maraming ginagawang tama ang pamahalaan. So whenever Congress would pass legislation that is human rights based, meron po kaming mga nilalabas na positive statements. over the years. Pag meron pong mga panukala, programa at polisiya sa executive, amin pong wini-welcome yan sa press statements. Meron rin po kaming OK Card campaign as a result of the intervention of Honorable Marcoleta, where we give a thumbs up sign or a seal of approval to ongoing plans, programs, policies, legislation that is passed by Congress. This now gives the public an idea na kapag ginawa po ng pamahalaan yung kanilang trabaho ay alinsunod sa mga palituntunin ng karapatang pantao, ginagawa po niya yung kanyang importanteng responsibilidad. And so we thank Honorable Marcoleta for giving us that constructive feedback in terms of clarifying our mandate to the public.
Do you remember that specifically in the defense of your budget at the plenary, I asked specifically whether or not the CHR has the jurisdiction to investigate on its own the atrocities of the Abu Sayyaf and the banditry of the Mote Gang in Marawi, as well as those responsible in the SAP debacle. And the answer given to me by the CHR defender at the time is that the CHR has no jurisdiction over this. That is the reason why I raised question whether or not we should give you a 1,000 budget. Did you recall that?
Madam Chair, we do...
Yes or no? Yes, sir.
Yes, Madam Chair.
And did you know that because of that, I had several buzzers, thousands of them, until today. Because I think the CHR failed to tell the public that I just did that to redirect and reorient the constitutional mandate of the CHR, that not only the state agents and state actors should be the focus of your jurisdiction, but also non-state agents like private armies or armed groups, private people, especially those who are enemies of the state. That was the basis why I stood and recommended a 1,000 peso budget. After that, maraming taon nang nakalipas po. And specifically, the next budget hearing, you also know and you should also admit today that the former CHR chairman, the late Chito Gascon, agreed with this representation to correct your infographics. And he signed the correct one with me. I still have my copy here. And I think from that, as you have been mentioning, it should have been a redirection and reorientation of what you should be doing. Hindi lamang po pulis at saka mga sundalo ang nakagagawa ng human rights violations. Kahit na po pribadong tao, kasama po yun doon sa inyong trabaho. Yun po yung aking gustong gawin. Pero alam ko po, hindi pa sapat na malaman ng tao kaya ako ginawa yun. Sapagkat hanggang ngayon, marami pa rin nagbabasa sa akin. Madam Chair, I want also to inform this committee that because of that position, yung 1,000 peso budget, I was then doing my doctoral dissertation at the University of the Philippines. Alam po ba ninyo na yung aking advisor iniwanan ako dahil sa aking ginawa? Did you know that, Madam?
Unfortunately, Madam Chair, we were not aware that that was a result of that.
Well, I'm sorry that they did not know that, Madam Chair, because I stood on the floor by way of a privileged speech, and in one of those things that I have ventured to say, sabi ko, iniwanan po ako ng aking advisor. Mabuti na lamang kasing tapang ako ni Congressman Lagman. Nilaban ko po hanggang sa natapos ko rin ang aking doctoral dissertation kahit na hindi ako tinulungan. Tinanong ko po doon, Madam Chair, di ba wala ba akong na-violate na human right doon considering na wala naman pong kinalaman ng pagtayo ko sa pagtatrabaho ko po ito sa Kongreso, kasama ko si Congressman Lagman. Whether for or against a particular issue, trabaho po namin yun eh. Iniwanan po ako ng aking advisor. Na-violate po ba ang aking human right?
It is very unfortunate,
No, the question
Madam
is,
Chair.
na-violate ba ang aking human right?
Yes po, meron po tayong right to education, and of course, we would want to make sure that everyone is able to access that right. But nonetheless, we congratulate you for finishing your doctorate even if you were
Thank you for the
abandoned po
congratulations.
by
Pero
your
may tanong ko po,
professor.
iimbestigahan ba ninyo sapagkat na-violate ang aking human right?
We commit to look into the matter, Madam Chair. We will be engaging with a dialogue with the professor so that we can discuss the matter and thresh out the matter.
Salamat po. What is the definition of human rights?
Human rights po are the supreme inalienable inherent. Sorry po, na po nag-dictate. Alam na alam po ng aking mga kasamahan.
Alam
Pasensya
po
na po
ninyo,
kaya
kaya ko
sa
tinatanong
kanila.
ito. This is a very important question.
Yes po.
Hanggat hindi
We do
po
agree.
tayo nagkakaintindihan kung ano yung human right, hindi po natin alam kung ano talaga nababiolate. So I want you to tell us, ano po talaga ang definition ng human right?
Ayon po sa United Nations, ang karapatang pantao po yung pinaka-supreme, inalienable, inherent rights that we have po as human beings. It is the essence of what makes a man,
Wala po ba
a human
tayong
being.
domestic law? Bakit puro United Nations na lang? Wala bang batas ang ating bansa?
Marami po tayong
Wala pa
batas.
tayong local jurisprudence, domestic?
Marami
Ano
po
na yung
tayo-
pabayanan
yes.
natin? Kung wala tayong domestic basis, saka na natin kunin yung United Nations.
Madam Chair, the Philippine government as well as Congress should draw pride in the fact that we have over the years enacted a lot of legislation, in particular on human rights.
Hindi po,
And-
what is the definition as we see it and as we know it in our local jurisdiction?
Ito po, ang karapatang pantao po ay likas sa atin dahil tao po tayo. Kailangan po natin ang karapatang pantao dahil ito po yung nagbibigay ng esensya sa ating pagiging tao. It's what distinguishes us from
You are describing
animals.
it, madam. You are not defining it. Importante po ma-define natin sapagkat hindi natin alam kung anong nababiolate kung hindi natin kilala. Ano yung nabiolate natin?
Yung Simon versus CHR po na case natin, human rights are our entitlement as human beings. It's natural po and inherent in us
Ito po
being
yun.
a human.
Nasabi niyo yung Simon. Pareho
Apo.
tayo dyan. Ito po.
Yes po.
In the case of Simon et al. Versus Commission on Human Rights, GR number 100-150, January 5, 1994. The Supreme Court had the occasion to take judicial notice of the broad definition of human rights as culled from the unassembled Symposium on Human Rights in the Philippines, sponsored by the University of the Philippines in 1977. Human rights include civil rights, such as right to life, liberty and property, freedom of speech, of the press, of religion, academic freedom. Ito po yung sinasabi ko kanina. To form political associations and social rights such as the right to education, employment, and social services. The term civil rights has been defined to include the rights of property, marriage, equal protection of the laws, freedom of contract, or rights pertaining to persons by virtue of his citizenship or to rights capable of being enforced or redressed in a civil action. Ito po ang definition ng civil ng human rights. Napakalawak.
Marcoleta, your time is up, but as a friend, I'm giving you an extension of a minute.
Ano po yun? Ganito po kasi yun eh. Sa dami po nitong human rights na to, kamukha po nang nangyari sa Abu Sayyaf, sa SAC 44, ang tinitingnan lang naman po natin eh. Kasi on your own eh. You have to investigate, baka sakaling maraming na-violate dito. Marami po talaga eh. Ngayon, tinanong ko po sa kanila noon, hindi po nyo jurisdiction. Mali po yun eh.
Yes po. Madam Chair, we wish to inform the body that we have investigated such cases and we continue to investigate such cases. In fact, we have also issued condemnatory statements. For SAP 44, we have investigated such. We have provided financial assistance to all such. We regret that it was not made known to the public in the past years, but we have endeavored to remedy it following the intervention of Honorable Marcoleta.
Ito po, huli na lang. Last Congress, a committee investigated a housing project constructed in Misamis Occidental involving a deputy speaker, involving the powers that be in Misamis Occidental. Ang dami pong mga government offices ang nasangkot doon. DPWH, Commission on Audit, DILG, National Housing Authority, halos lahat po ng agencies involved, pati PCUP. And to the credit of the Human Rights Commission, yung representative po ninyo was able to document na totoong nangyari sapagkat winasak lahat ang mga bahay, pati po yung may-ari ng mga residential lots na nagtayo sila ng sariling bahay. Pag-aari nila talaga, yung titled in their own names. Yung congressman doon, sarili niyang constituents, kapitbahay niya, winasak niya ang mga bahay, invoking the right to expropriate. Ang dami pong nalabag na batas. And there is a committee report produced by that committee and upheld, adopted by the plenary, at sinasabi po doon ng maraming recommendations. Tingnan po niyo yun sapagkat sinabi, padalhan ng DOJ, padalhan ang ombudsman, padalhan pati Solicitor General for any administrative, civil, law, whatever, and probably human rights violations. Ano po kaya ang gagawin niyo doon? Meron pong committee report talaga.
Madam
Will you be able to look into that?
Yes, Madam Chair, we will be looking into such matter. The CHR actively participates in all pre-demolition conferences. We look into such cases as well and investigate. And if the results of our investigation will point out to liabilities, we will be recommending the filing of charges. And we will look into that report, Madam Chair, and make sure that the recommendations made by Congress will be carried out and acted upon.
I will undertake to give her a copy of the committee report, Madam Chair and Madam Defender of the CHR. Para lang makasiguro po tayo, ako nang magbibigay sa inyo ng kopya at tututukan ko po kayo kung talagang gagawin ninyo.
That is much appreciated, Madam Chair,
Salamat
and
po,
we will
Madam
ensure, Honorable Marcoleta. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Marcoleta. Next, may I call in Representative Bonifacio Bosito from the minority.
Madam Chair, thank you.
Bosita, sorry.
Sa ating po lahat, good morning. Madam Chair, kapag nadinig po natin yung mga kataga na human rights violations, hindi lahat, pero ang sumasagi po sa ating isip, ang mga biktima dito ay mga ordinaryong Pilipino lamang. Maaari po ba, Madam Chair, ma-request natin from the CHR representatives na sagutin lamang po sa Tagalog ang ilang aking mga katanungan para maintindihan po ng ating mga kababayan, lalong-lalo na po yung mga nabibiktima ng human rights violations.
Opo, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, ako po ay dating member ng Philippine Constabulary, one of the branches of Armed Forces of the Philippines. And dati rin po akong Police Commission Officer. Madam Chair, madalas naming nadidinig to na kapag ordinaryong Pilipino or hindi state agent ang napatay, sinasabi na yung military or police personnel na violate yung human rights. Pero kapag police or military ang nadisgrasya, katulad na rin nung nangyari sa Mama Sapano, ay sinasabing all right. Madam Chair, pwede po bang may paliwanag ninyo ito at nang madinig ng ating mga kababayan kung ito ba ito totoo o hindi o nangyayari talaga?
Madam Chair, salamat po sa katanungan. Una po, binibigyan po natin ng diin na lahat po ng tao ay may karapatang pantao. Kahit anuman ang kanyang katayuan sa buhay, siya man ay ordinaryong sibilyan o bahagi ng pamahalaan. So kapag meron pong paglabag ng kanilang karapatang pantao, ito po ay dapat nating ikondena at dapat po siguraduhin natin na mga tamang remedyo ay maibigay po sa kanila at bahagi na rin po dyan ay ang hustisya. Kapag po kinitil ang buhay ng isang ordinaryong mamamayan, yan po ay dapat talagang imbestigahan at mapapanagot kung sino mang kumitil ng buhay. Yan po ay pinaparusahan ng ating revised penal code bilang isang murder or homicide at common crime po iyan. Sinasabi po natin. Kapag naman po ang isang ordinaryong civilian ay pinatay po, for example, ng isang state agent o kaya po ng isang non-state agent, isa rin pong mabigat na paglabag sa karapatang pantao po iyan dahil ginamit po ang lehitimong kapangyarihan para po maabuso ito at magresulta sa panghingikil ng buhay. At ang Kongreso po ay naglahad ng maraming mga espesyal na batas na nagpapabigat ng parusa para sa mga bagay na ito. Kaya lang bottom line po ay parehong paglabag na dapat pong usisain, na dapat pong kondenahin. At ang CHR naman po sa mga usapin ng common crimes ay nire-refer po muna iyan sa Philippine National Police. At sa mga pagkakataon po na hindi po ay kipagtulungan po ang CHR sa mga panahon na kailangan po ito. Doon naman po sa mga paglabag, doon po sa mga karapatan ng mga pulisya, ng mga kasundaluhan, nilalahad po namin na kami po sa mga nakaraang taon ay nag-issue po ng maraming press statement kung saan po kinukundina namin. Katunayan po, for example, noong March 3, 2022, na nagkaroon po ng NPA attack in Sorsogon that killed a cop. Yan po ay aming kinondena, yan po ay aming inimbestiga at pending na may rekomendasyon na po kami magbigay ng financial assistance sa kanila. Gayun din po yung nangyari sa ambush na nangyari sa 3 kasundaluhan. Panawagan po namin ay sundin po ang international humanitarian para sa isang ideolohiya. Gayun din po yung iba pa pong mga insidente na nangyari sa nakaraan. Kaya lang bottom line po, sinasabi nga po natin lahat ng mga paglabag sa karapatang pantao ay dapat tugunan ng iba't ibang ahensya kasama na rin po ng CHR.
Madam Chair, follow up lang po doon sa issue. Nabanggit po ninyo yan at ako naman po ay naniniwala sa inyo. May natatandaan po ba kayo na particular incident na nagkaroon kayo ng accomplishment in favor of the PNP or military personnel?
Opo, katunayan po noong 2014 ay nagsagawa po kami ng isang Torture Prevention Ambassador Project at amin pong sinuportahan yung PNP Modernization Bill. Naniniwala po kami na kapag mas mataas po ang resources na meron ng ating kapulisan, ito po ay magre-resulta sa isang mas professionalized service na po ng isang human rights-based policing. At naniniwala kami na kapag mas marami po silang pondo para sa training, mapapabuti pa po ang pagtangkilik sa karapatang